I'm beating a dead horse here. I really am. And it's kind of funny because when we made videos initially talking about this trade and talking about what I thought about it and how I felt about the results and, just the outcome, right? The outcome is what we were looking at all those months ago back in the summer-ish when the Vancouver Canucks traded away Eriksson, Beagle, and Roussel and their first-round pick in the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, all this stuff, for Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Conor Garland. Back when the Canucks made the trade initially, I was like, okay, it's bold, but you got rid of Beagle, Roussel, and Eriksson. Sure, they only had 1 year remaining, but you got those contracts off the books. You got a legitimately good player in Conor Garland, and you have OEL, whom we're all hoping bounces back and becomes the version of himself from the past. And I kinda dig it. I said a few times that I was okay with the way the trade went down, especially with the early returns that we saw to Conor Garland and just how skilled that guy was in the lineup. However, it's been a few months, and I think we have to revisit this because the trade is almost a year old. We're in April now of 2022, and the Vancouver Canucks are in a position where I guess you could say that they were a playoff caliber team because if you played with Bruce Boudreau the entire year, you would have had 100-something points. Okay, that's a playoff team right there, but this team, as defined by Alvin, as defined by Rutherford, they're not there yet. They don't have a superstar, according to Patrick Alvin. I think that's up in the air right now, but these things are never really constant. They're not necessarily the fastest team. They're not necessarily the team with the most flexibility. All these things with the speed and the cap hits. We've seen comments from Alvin and Rutherford saying that they want to get faster, they want to get cheaper, all this stuff. And that's a good thing. Because Jim Benning was very liberal when it came to spending top dollar on guys that weren't really worth it. Loui Eriksson was the worst offender in that, but of course he traded him away alongside Beagle and Roussel in the first for this package here. It's just, today, with the Vancouver Canucks being in the position they're in, they're not a playoff team. They're just on the outside looking in. They have to cheer for all these other teams to go out there and take out these wild card and LA teams because they really need that luck for them to make the postseason dance. But as we have said before, that's not what Benning's plan was. Benning's plan was to sacrifice, firstly, the flexibility of the next few seasons because he had Beagle, Roussel, and Eriksson all coming off the books in 2022, as well as the future with Dylan Guenther, the guy the Arizona Coyotes drafted 9th overall, for a one more try, last stand attempt to make the postseason and try to see what happens there. It wasn't even okay, we're going to build our team and we're going to become a contender because of this trade kind of move. It was okay, we're going to try to just make the playoffs in the beginning because Aqua Daddy needs that playoff revenue. Even if we get smoked by the Colorado Avalanche, we just got to make the dance. And the team sucked. Travis Green did not do this team any favors. It's kind of funny because Bruce Boudreau is ultimately playing with the same team that Benning assembled. They look good sometimes, very bad other times, but they're not nearly consistent enough to be considered a playoff caliber team just yet, in my opinion. And they still have that anchor. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is making $7.26 million a year against the Vancouver Canucks cap until 2026-2027. And he's 30 right now. He'll be 35 when this contract expires, and sure, it's easy to say OEL has not been a bad player on the team. 25 points, 72 games played. He's produced a lot more, which is good, because now he's outproducing Chris Tanev, which he kind of needs to be, because Chris Tanev on the Calgary Flames, as we highlighted in the video talking about him and Goodbranson, he's been on fire, which is wild to see, but either way, when Chris Tanev and Eric Goodbranson, of all people, are comparable statistical profiles to a guy that was supposed to be a puck-moving, offensively capable defenseman in OEL, you're kind of doing something wrong here. Now again, OEL hasn't been bad, he's been a pretty good shutdown option, and I think he adds value to the team. It's just the contract makes his situation so much worse, because the Vancouver Canucks, take a look at the cap space they have heading into the next offseason here. They've got $13 million in cap space to re-sign Brock Boeser. It's just Brock Boeser that kind of needs a new deal that is significant. Everybody else, sorry, Lockwood, Chason, Patan, you guys are important, but you're not, mainstay regular guys. Actually, I guess Chiasson is now, but that's besides the point. The Vancouver Canucks have replacement-level players they all need to re-sign in Lockwood Richardson, Chiasson, Petan, Lammikko, Dries, Highmore, and then you have Brad Hunt and Yaroslav Halak as well. It's only really Brock Besser that you need to shell out significant money for. I know Jack Rathbone needs money too, but come on, Rathbone's not going to get a significant payday. But the problem comes when you think about those depth options. Say you let Lockwood, Richardson, Chiasson, Petan, Lammikko, Dries, and Highmore all go to free agency. You let DiGiuseppe and Justin Bailey and Sheldon Rempal all go to free agency too. All of a sudden, you don't have enough players on your team. Like, that's it. You have Petey, Bo, Brock, Miller, Garland, Pearson, Dickinson, and Podkolzin signed for an extended amount of time, and assume Besser takes $6 million, $7 million, just to throw a number out there. You would have $6 million to fill out the rest of your lineup, to fill up half of your offensive core. Do you see why now this entire cap situation has been a problem for the Vancouver Canucks? Tyler Myers is making $6 million a year till the end of 2024. Not a terrible player, but a bad contract. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, same thing, $7.25 million against the Canucks cap till 2027. Not a bad player, but a bad contract. You have Conor Garland, who has been good, but I guess you could be fair in saying that Conor Garland has more to give. There was an article that Harman Dale published earlier in The Athletic talking about how Conor Garland really hasn't felt like himself so far throughout this season, even though he had a good stint at the start of the year. He just really hasn't fit in the ways that a lot of Canucks fans, myself included, hoped he would over the course of an 82-game season. And then you go over to the other guys. You look at Beagle, you look at Roussel, you look at Eriksson. Together, these three guys are making, where is that? Eriksson's making $6 million. You have Beagle making $3 million. Roussel making $3 million too. That's $12 million in freed up cap space that you would have had if you let these guys go to free agency and you kept these guys on the team instead. If you undo the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade and you go into the Canucks offseason with the same roster that they have, of course minusing Garland and minusing OEL, that $13.6 million in cap space the Canucks have for next season, if you subtract or you add the amount that Oliver Ekman-Larsson would have been making, so 7.26, there you go, that's $20 million in cap space. Get rid of Conor Garland's contract on there, that's $5 million, okay. You would have had $25 million in cap space. Heck, re-sign Brock Besser at $6-7 million. I don't care. $18 million in cap space is a lot more than $6 million to fill out the rest of your lineup versus 18. Like, the Canucks aren't even good enough to be a Stanley Cup contender, yet Benning made another one of these moves to desperately push themselves into the dance. It was like that Tyler Toffoli trade. Harman Dale's point, once again, shout out to Harman. In 2020, when the Canucks made the Toffoli trade, they were still on the outside looking in. That trade, Tim Schaller, a second-round pick, and a conditional fourth for Tyler Toffoli, those are not the kinds of trades that tweener teams make. The teams that are balancing on the line of making the wild card and making the draft lottery make. These are trades that contenders that are already in the bubble make. Teams that are already top 3 locks in their division or wildcard locks in their division. The Toffoli trade was a trade that those types of teams make, not tweener teams. And the Vancouver Canucks went out there and did it again when they sacrificed the future, the cap flexibility, and Dylan Guenther for OEL and Conor Garland because they wanted to put all their assets into the now. And to be fair, they haven't been bad players, it's just OEL is severely underperforming on that dollar amount. Conor Garland, you could debate he's even okay at what he does, it's just he hasn't had the best fit himself, so it's tough to say with all certainty that that was a positive move. So for Jim Benning, even though the last trade that he made technically with the team was a good one, Olio Levy for Lammikko and Noah Juleson, that's not a bad trade, I like that one a lot. The biggest, most significant monetary impactful trade that he made was one of the worst ones as well. Not because of the quality of the players coming back, but because of the context. It's the team's economical identity. It's where the team is going to go. Rutherford and Alvin are going to have to go out there this offseason and free up a whole bunch of money. Now, whether that means trading away Tyler Myers, trading away OEL, trading away a Besser, trading away a Miller, doing all this stuff because they need to go out there and clean up Jim Benning's remnants of this team, I don't know what it's going to be. But you can let me know in the comments all your thoughts about this entire idea over here. Am I wrong in calling out the OEL trade the way that I am? We've seen that the Vancouver Canucks are capable at finding players that are cheap, that are actually valuable, and that outperform their contracts. Podkolzin, we talked about him yesterday. He's been doing really well. Alex Chiasson, same thing. You have Luke Shen that's making a league minimum amount of money too. And so, when you think about what these other guys are providing, OEL, this huge contract, Conor Garland making $5 million, but he's not comfortable here, and you still have Tyler Myers, and then you see how well Dylan Guenther has been playing in the WHL. It makes things very difficult to swallow that OEL trade with pride and say, yeah, that was a great trade. Kind of like I did back when the trade was made. I didn't say that verbatim, I kind of insinuated it, but I was like, okay, we'll see where it goes, and yeah, it's months later, and I'm not a fan anymore. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you enjoyed this British Ashroll 99. And bye.